The world's first money. Ancient times, 630 BC, the Lydian stater. It's like a pinto bean. I have a pinto bean. But they were using gold and silver. And it's revolutionary. People don't know this history. They were never taught it. It's more than money in a single piece of metal. It solved problems like bartering big bags of barley. It answered big questions like, how do you trust a stranger to make a big purchase? And the answer to that question would build empires and connect East with West. I'm Mr. Hall, and this is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where timeless stories reveal truth and wisdom for your journey. And this journey is for you. In the invention of money, I want to make you an expert. On ancient economics in Lydia, now it's modern Turkey, rivers are flowing in gold, literally. Wealthy kings have legends surrounding them. You've heard them before, but they invent money, and the economy is about to rocket across the royal road of the Persians and later connect to the Silk Road. This is lesson number 20 in your ancient history course, and we step into the story of the invention of money to ask those big questions and discover how it shaped history, how it still shapes your journey. So in this lesson, first, we will explore the world before coins, an economy that's built on clay tablets, IOUs, and untrustworthy Hacksilver. Second, we replace that with coins and trust and purity, starting in 630 BC. Third, how did the Persians scale this even bigger and better than what the Lydians did when they invented coins, and the Persians made new, better coins? And finally, it's the social revolution. Money is accessible. We'll go to Greece, at the heart of the Athenian democracy that's just been invented, and we'll compare their silver coins to today's silver coins. I'll show you a few in my coin collection. Even if you're not a coin collector, stick around to the end, because this is a timeless economic lesson that actually shows you what is money and how is it trusted. So thank you for letting me help you level up as a classical scholar. Have you been in the situation where there is no money? I'm talking about your lunch table and you exchange, you barter, apples for candy and juices for whatever. My favorite was the Halloween candy exchange. You could line up all those candies that you weren't so crazy about. There'd be somebody that would want that as a favorite, and you can get a great deal in bartering. Classical Kingdoms, lesson number 5, we went into greater depth about economics before money was invented. Economics is the science of scarcity, and we're doing that again here. And in this first segment, let's understand what it was like not to have money and go into some detail about IOUs and the importance of writing. And it will serve to understand how revolutionary the invention of coin really is. So you can imagine the simple barter economy, like the exchange, the lunch table exchange, the Halloween candy. But let's look at IOUs on clay tablets, right? You remember ziggurats. You remember writing getting invented. Lesson number 6, Classical Kingdoms. The invention of writing was because scribes were making business records. You had to record some of the barley that is getting stored in the ziggurat, ancient Mesopotamia. That's where writing was invented. And so we could call this the palace economy. This would be true in other centers of commerce where the king, the authority, the palace, the ziggurat, this is where things were stored, and the clay tablets recorded whose they were. So this kind of became the fuel for this economy. It's not cash, it's the value of what's being stored and then the trust of the writing, the IOU, so that you could barter and exchange from that. So these old accounting records from 2100 BC, writing was invented long before that. And it was because people wanted trust. They tracked ownership, tax payments, contracts, purchases. And it is almost like the clay tablets were kind of money. If you've ever exchanged IOUs or slips of paper, say, I promise to do something. It's kind of like that, built on trust. And that is really a huge point for you to take away from this. How do you do this trust thing? Do you have a strong king building the ziggurat? Do you have scribes recording things? But what happened? How do you do this outside your palace? How do you do this outside your society? You want to make a deal with somebody from far away. So they have a system for that, and you've already heard this. You can probably figure it out from common sense. Let's use gold, silver. Let's use raw precious metal. Let's call it bullion. Bullion. What is bullion? That is gold bars, silver bars. That's nowadays measured with purity. It's stamped. You carry it around. You lock it in a safe. In ancient times, if you wanted it to be portable and go other places, put Hacksilver into a bag. Hacksilver. Sometimes you'll see it Hacksilver with a B. What is that? Go around your house and look for scraps of silver. Put it in a bag and carry it around. And that was ancient money. Seems random that your collection of chopped up, jewelry you don't like anymore, tableware, broken ingots. Now this is sounding like Minecraft a little bit, that these ingots you would carry around would be viewed like valuable money that hasn't been invented yet. We call it proto-currency. Proto-currency. What is proto? The first ever currency. And it makes a lot of sense. Don't you think it's common sense that you could exchange some of this valuable silver, but don't you have to weigh it? Do you have a set of scales? Do you even own scales at your house? It's a little bit painstaking because not only do you need the scales, merchants, if you're going to make exchanges, you've got to have trusted standard scales and weights, standard weights. And this is a special archaeological find when they discover these standard weights of ancient times, because they are counterbalances to how much Hacksilver you're hacking into pieces. Now, I am talking about the shekel. In the Fertile Crescent, the shekel coming from Mesopotamia, and it's mentioned in the Bible. In fact, the first ever land deal, you might be familiar with Abraham. In around 2000 BC, he purchases that tomb at Hebron for his wife Sarah. He pays 400 shekels, not coins, but the text explains he weighs out the silver. Shekel is a weight, unit of weight, and he weighs it out in public because you have to do this for trust. You want the record of other people seeing it. You don't count the coins, you chop up the pieces of silver, and that was a transaction and a record. Now, let's jump over, see what's happening in Greece, because they actually will have some similar kind of system. Now, they had a base unit called the obol. The obol is a bronze or probably iron spit, like a nail, like a skewer. You could cook with it. And they did. This unit, if you had 6 of them, you could hold them in your hands, a grasp, and that's what the word drachma means. The grasp of 6. The drachma was simply 6 iron spits. You could hold them in your hand, and that drachma is going to be like a shekel. As you track that throughout all of your economic lessons, your history lessons, shekels, drachma. Later, the Romans will have denarii. And it started in Greece with 6 kind of cumbersome iron rods you'd have to carry around. Now, in the 7th century BC, around the time that the Lydians are inventing coins, the Greek king Phidon of Argos, when he sees this changeover in money happening, he bundles up all these iron spits and dedicates them to the goddess Hera at the temple of Hera as kind of an act of representing that we're shifting over. We're shifting over from the way money was like spits and it could be useful. We could cook with it. It's metal we could use. And we're shifting over to money that's like round discs that you can't really cook with. But the question is, how do you get something that you actually need? Like food. How do you get food from this object, from this money? And that was King Phaidon's way of saying it's a shift from money as a useful item, like a spit, like a nail, into money as an idea that is trusted. Here we go again with trust, but that's a very important economic concept. Do you like trust? Do you like barter? Click the like button now, please, to help with this video. And, classicalkingdoms.com has all of these lessons mapped out because I've referenced many of them as part of your complete ancient history course, your classical journey into history, virtue, and wonder. And do you think this system of trust makes sense so far? It'll make a lot more sense when we invent coins and take a look at the way coins have developed over time. Ancient trust. In the first segment, I might have made it sound too trustworthy because they have a massive problem with trust. People that are trading across the Mediterranean Sea, across the Fertile Crescent, there is a massive trust problem. If it's not the metal, it's the language, it's the distance, it's the commodity. How do you solve the problem of trust, at least to make it a lot better? And that solution is the invention of coins. It's coming from Lydia in the 7th century BC. The kingdom of Lydia is located in modern-day Turkey. Lydia is the perfect crucible for this innovation. For one reason, they had tons of gold in their rivers. Panning for gold. Have you ever been panning for gold? I remember as a child going to Colorado for the first time, going up the mountains towards Pikes Peak, and we stopped. We pulled off the road and panned for gold. And there's little flecks of gold everywhere. I mean, they're tiny little flecks, and they might be fool's gold, iron pyrites. But it was exciting. I was 7 years old and still remember it well. That's what Lydia has, kind of like the gold rush of Colorado and California back in the day, and Yukon. So that's why Lydia could be the perfect crucible for connecting from Greece all the way eventually to Asia. They would be known as a wealthy, powerful, important city. Their capital city is Sardis. And the Persians will put that as one of their anchor cities of the royal road. But Lydia's greatest natural resource is also going to be a big problem for them. Now let's call it's not just gold. I should specify that it's an alloy of gold. Electrum. Have you heard of Electrum? Electrum is a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver. And it's being washed down from the mountains in the Pactolus River. It's maybe 50% up to 90% gold. So its purity varies quite a bit. And so we've got a little problem there. It would be a lot of work to separate out all that silver and gold and to get it very precise. Of course, in today's world, bullion bars are 99.9% pure. They're marked. But back then, it's very hard to determine. That's a very highly specific and skilled type of thing. So do we really need to know? Let's think, what else could we do to build trust without knowing the exact purity of the gold and silver content? Electrum is variable. Merchants had an even bigger problem that people could manipulate and dump in cheaper silver themselves and dilute it even more. It would still have a golden color, like 10 karat gold is less than half pure gold, but it looks like gold. It would take an expert to really know the difference. So it's unpredictable and it's lacking in trust. And I thought this lesson is supposed to be about trust. What do we do? What would you suggest to help solve the problem how much gold is in here. The Lydian king Aleuades, around 630 BC, implements a brilliant solution to this problem. He opens a mint. The mint stamps out coins. They're bean-shaped coins. They are lumps. They are the native Electrum of this area. But he makes two revolutionary changes. More than that, really, he standardizes the coin. So a mint is going to keep stamping out the same exact size. Standardization. Can you trust a standard because it's always standard? It's the same. A Lydian stater was defined as 168 grains of wheat. 168 grains of wheat. That's the equivalent of weight for the stater. Second, it's genius. He puts a stamp on them. I mean, not on them. He stamps into them the royal seal. What is the royal seal? This is the earliest Lydian coin. You see the head of a roaring lion. Now let's think. Why a roaring lion? Why not a little mouse? This is marketing. This is branding, right? This incredible badge, you know, the lion in the classroom. Every kid has seen the Lion King at this point, the king of the jungle, the heraldry of the beauty, the strength, the power is now being attached to the dynasty, the strength of the king, the Lydian government. This is a simple act, but it is brilliant. It's so important. It adds trust. It really, you stamp into this bean a picture of a lion. And this is an invention and true innovation, and it builds trust. It's not a denomination. We are not stamping $5 onto it like it's a Lincoln $5 bill. It's not that at all. We're not there yet. We'll get there, but this is a royal guarantee from the state, from the Lydians. And so we're building trust. The size is the same. We can see the metal. That indentation in the back helps you kind of see into the back of it that it's not like painted or coated or something fake. It's certified. The merchant would tell this just by touching it, by feeling it. He knew that the standard weight and the standard purity was something of trust. And so now we're transferring the basis of trust from the metal itself to the mint issuer, the authority. Think about the mint authority. And if you put out enough of these, which they could because they have so much in their rivers and their mountains, this is the first time in history that a trade merchant didn't need his scales, right? You really do get a sense when you hold coins, which doesn't happen so much anymore, right? Electronic currency. But when you hold these, when I was just playing with my coins and getting them ready to show you in the last segment, they all look, feel, sound different. And I really noticed the importance of what they stamp on them. They were building trust with that, knowing what country it's from, knowing what it was made out of. Thank you, King Aleuades, right? Isn't he brilliant? Didn't he invent something incredible, this technology? It's like a killer application, killer app, right? And I guess it's worth noting that one of the reasons why we're pushing this, not so much because merchants are tired of carrying around bags of barley, but the Lydian kings needed to pay the military, right? So enter in a new concept that we just need to pay our troops. Wouldn't that make your empire powerful? The Lydians did have significant power in this area. They replaced the Hittites. They have valuable land. They're hiring Greek mercenaries to, like, the Greeks have come across the Aegean Sea. They've colonized this area. They share a lot of cultural practices in common. So they hire Greek mercenaries and they need to be paid. These mercenaries are far away from home and they need a portable payment, not an IOU for a palace that's nowhere close to their family or their homeland. So doesn't this make a lot of sense? We are using trusted coins, minted, stamped in Lydia. The Greek mercenaries have these convenient state-guaranteed coins that they take back home. The city-states of Greece accept this. And it's because of the struggle of warfare, the agon, that made the Lydians want a better technology, a better coin, a better system of money. So those are a few details that the Lydian Revolution really helped with. But don't get too excited about the Lydians, right? You already know this if you came here from lesson number 19. The Persians, King Croesus, Aleides' son, King Croesus, was notoriously wealthy and maybe a little bit overly prideful. His wealth was so vast, it became like a proverb, like an idiom. People would say, "You're as rich as Croesus." As rich as Croesus, his fortune was built on the taxes and the trade and the strength of the army that he hired from the Greeks, the wealth of the gold dust that's flowing down the Pactolus River. This was the very same river where the legendary King Midas, you've heard of King Midas. He was said to have washed away his golden touch in this legendary river. Why is there so much gold in the river? It was because of King Midas washing off his golden touch. Well, the wealth of Croesus was literally the stuff of myth, because Croesus's true genius was his solution to the Electrum problem. The Electrum problem, remember Electrum, the blend of gold and silver. His father had only standardized it, Aleides, but Croesus eliminated the standardization. He was the first one to use a metallurgical technology. Metallurgy. What is metallurgy? Metallurgical, the understanding of metals and alloys, a mixture of metal, not a chemical reaction of metal, but just the mixture of silver and gold, this natural alloy, and the other metals that go into it, and how they were purified. So he issued his own coin, the Croeseid. And it's the world's first bimetallic monetary system, silver and gold. It's two different coins, one pure gold and one pure silver. So, surprised? This is the beginning, the genesis, the genius of these different. So 8.1 grams of a light gold stater is equivalent to 10 of the similar sized silver staters. So that he's establishing basically a 10 to 1. It's not exactly 10 to 1. The ratio is really 13 to 1, 13.3 to 1. But he's establishing the exchange rate of gold. He's establishing a value because his mint is going to pound these things out. And it's something like perfection of money, predictable. It's not perfect because of the look. You can see that these are a little scrappy for today's coin standards, but it's predictable. It's divisible. Hacksilver, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to chop up pieces of our jewelry. It's portable. And it's pure. As pure as we can go, like at least we know the purity of it. The coins would have the roaring lion. Of course they're going to have the roaring lion, but this time the roaring lion is facing, the lion faces the bull. The symbol, the royal Lydian power over a bull. Right? It's power over your enemy, and you're going to stamp it in that coin. This is when I will ask the kids, like, how would you design money? This was always an activity early on in our classroom with ancient trade. Design a piece of money. And what material would you use for it. We would do this around Halloween candy time, or they could use candy. They could use something that's useful, something that they know has value, but it was worth more when you stamped it with something, when you had a brand on it. The bull being, intimidated by the lion. This is the first invention of coins, and it's more than just little pebble-sized gold and silver coins. The Lydians are going to change everything, but the Persians are coming. You already know what's about to happen here. So at least the Lydians and Sardis have started the revolution. Let's see what happens when the Persians pick up and run with this amazing invention. Well, King Croesus had mastered the techna, the craft of this economic invention, this revolution, but his story is remembered really because of his ultimate failure of excellence and virtue, erate. It's the timeless philosophical lesson. Greeks love to tell this one about the problems with hubris. Hubris, what is hubris? That is the excessive arrogance and pride, right? Croesus is arrogant, and Lydia's got a problem if they're expecting this king to do well with future challenges, because the way Herodotus, the Greek historian, tells it, that when the Athenian lawgiver Solon came over and visited Sardis, Solon was wise. He created the first constitution for the Athenians, and Croesus is showing off his gold and his riches, and he says, "Who is the happiest man in the world?" And he expects that Solon's just going to praise him for so much wealth, but Solon instead starts to name dead Greek heroes, the happiest men in the world. Dead Greek heroes? What? He's warning the king, call no man happy until he is dead, for a man's life is subject to the whims of fate. Croesus dismisses Solon, right? He has hubris. He has excessive arrogance. He's not listening to wisdom or lessons or warnings. So later, when Lydia, their kingdoms, their empire, they have a small empire, they have a lot of influence, they're being threatened by the rise of Cyrus the Great. Oh, if you just came here from lesson 19, Cyrus the Great, you know what's going to happen. Croesus decides to attack. Why would he attack this massive Persian empire? Well, because he first tested at one of the center places of understanding, Delphi. Delphi is the center of understanding in the Greek world. It's an oracle. What is an oracle? Well, lesson 27, I go into greater detail about it, but you're going to hear a lot about Delphi as the place where Apollo helps bring all the understanding together. And part of that could be that wise people, wise kind of fortune tellers, foreseers, might know what you need to be told. Wisdom. So he sends messengers to get the wisdom, and he wants to test them, and he asks what he was doing on a very specific day. And he was doing something very bizarre. It's kind of an unthinkable act. He was boiling a lamb and a tortoise in a bronze cauldron. And only the Oracle of Delphi was able to answer this correctly. So Croesus is just amazed. Wow, Delphi must be doing. Now, I know how Delphi is able to pull this thing off. They're not like magical fortune tellers. They are knowledgeable people. They apply wisdom, and they have people learning things all over the world. But I digress. Let's talk about Croesus, because when he decides to send golden lion, a huge gold and silver bowl, gifts to Delphi, because he wants the big question to be answered: should I attack Persia? Should Lydia attack Persian Empire, the Cyrus the Great and Delphi? 8 times a year, they would have the Pythia, the priestesses, give a special ceremony. I don't know if that was one of these, but it probably was, or at least we have the record. One of the most ambiguous prophecies in history. What is ambiguous? It's open to interpretation, and Delphi loved to do that. So here's the message they sent. If Croesus attacks Cyrus, he will destroy a great empire. If Croesus attacks Cyrus, he will destroy a great empire. Do you see the lesson you're learning here about the hubris? Oh, too much wealth, too much gold, too much success could blind you, because you could interpret that both ways. If Croesus attacks Cyrus, well, Croesus interprets it his way, his prideful way, that he must attack and then he will defeat for certain. So he does. He marches against Cyrus. And at the Battle of Thymbra, Cyrus employs a brilliant, unexpected tactic. He knew that the Lydian cavalry was the best. The cavalry was the best in the world. That their horses had never seen or smelled camels. Do you know that horses could be startled easily? Camels. What do you think Cyrus is going to do? He placed his army's baggage camels. You don't use camels in an army fight. But if you want to stink up the place and be unexpected, be surprising a little, this is good strategy. But even more so, he knew horses. He understood if they were in the front line, the Lydian horses would catch the scent of the camels. They would be scared. They'd panic. And they did. They fled. Croesus's undefeatable army was routed. Sardis was destroyed in 14 days by 546 BC. Herodotus is the Greek historian who, visits and reflects about this philosophical climax that Croesus was placed on this great funeral pyre, about to be burned alive, and as the flames rose, he remembered the wisdom that he had scorned from Solon, and he cries out to Solon, 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 and Cyrus stopped and asked what he meant by that. Croesus told him the story while the fire's going and explained how he understood now, but no man could be called happy until he's dead. The great empire that he had destroyed was his own empire. More complications arise because the societal shift away from King Croesus creates an incredible kind of unexpected consequence. The Persian Empire, they didn't invent money, right? The Lydians did, but now, guess what? They have the world's most advanced economic engine. They've got a mint. They've got the Lydian city of Sardis. Cyrus the Great, in a moment of political genius, recognized its superiority, right? You would know this. You know that coins are better than bartering and IOUs. He adopted this. This was now official Persian Empire funding. He expanded the use of the coins. He's got control of the gold rivers now. And this gold, he's famously going to use it. And this true synthesis is actually going to be carried on by King Darius the First. Darius's excellence comes after Cyrus the Great. Darius standardizes weights. He makes Aramaic an official language. Aramaic, an international language that could be spoken easily amongst merchants, traveling merchants, and economy along the Royal Road and beyond that, into the beginning of the Silk Road. But most importantly, he creates this sustainable tax system. Taxes. Nobody likes taxes, but this is what's paying for the strength and the unity of the Persian Empire. So this new predictable tax system is going to create demand for a way to pay for it, and people have to pay for it with the standard currency. So we've invented money. Lydians have invented it. The Persians are now finding more ways to make it standard. And his solution was this new currency infrastructure on the Persian royal road, Darius perfected a 1,600-mile logistically amazing highway from Susa to Sardis. And they even had 111 postal stations. So this was to move the army quickly. It was also to move messages quickly. It's the world's first post office kind of system. Royal couriers. It's a nonstop relay of fresh riding horses. It's the fastest way to travel with a message to get it across from Susa to Sardis, 1,600 miles. So that's pretty amazing. Herodotus is the one who originally said, these neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor night prevent from accomplishing their appointed course, which kind of sounds like what we talk about our postal service in the United States. Anyway, I digress. The king's commands could travel at a faster rate than any rebellion. You can move troops quickly, but moving messages, moving responses, that's very brilliant. But the currency is going with it. Around 515 BC, Darius replaced those Lydian coins, the one with the bull getting faced down by the mighty lion, the Lydian Croeseid, and he introduces the world's first true imperial currency for this mighty empire, minted at the same Lydian mints in Sardis, and he's going to call it the gold Darius. Names it after Darius himself. It was pure, 95.83%. That is very high. So this gold currency, this international gold currency, gold coins are too much money for a single coin. You've got to subdivide it, kind of like what Croesus did when he made the unit. So here's what King Darius does. The silver siglos, a small silver coin for local trade. This was 20 to 1. 20 silver sigloi for one gold daric. And the propaganda, once again, is brilliant because Darius replaces the lion and the bull with a new image. What do it be? What do we put? The king himself. Put the guy. King Darius is the first guy on the coin, and that's pretty much what we love to do from here on out. The Greeks nicknamed it the archer, kind of a revolutionary act, because before this, the power is based on the monuments, the static power from the strength of the place, like Lydia. But Darius puts the dynamic expression of his royal power into the hands of millions. Everyone's got to touch these coins. Everyone's got to use them to spend. Do they trust Darius? Do they trust the Persian Empire? This lesson is about trust. We trust the gold, we trust the silver, we trust the royal road, we trust the messages that travel quickly. We trust the strength of the Persian Empire. It is brilliant. So I'm about to get out my coins from the coin collection so we can track, what are the silver coins of today? How does this compare to the past? Because well done, Lydians and now Persians, and the Greek drachma is going to fuel an amazing economy and connecting east to west. Lydians inventing, the Persians scaling these coins. This is revolutionizing everything. But remember, their focus was at first just paying the armies, collecting the taxes, being good administrators. Let's consider the Greeks. They have invented democracy. What would they do to democratize money? What do you do across the Aegean Sea? It's even going to start with some of those Ionian city-states, the colonies of the Greeks that are actually on the coast of Turkey. I mean, Anatolia, close to Lydia. The first European city-state to actually mint its own coins was Aegina, and they had the famous silver turtle stater, the turtle stater, a humble turtle. The Greek innovation is that these are not high-value gold staters. They're small, right? So Athens, of course, is going to be the revolutionary leader because they will be minting massive quantities of a small denomination silver coin, drachma. Drachma as a silver coin with an owl on it. Or actually, that's a four drachma coin with the owl. They have tiny silver coins for the obol, no more iron nails, iron rods. And so this is the first time in history that currency is accessible to the general populace, people, power to the people because they have money and now they can go shopping every day. Economic activities could be done with coins. So how much is the drachma worth? If you were a skilled artisan, a drachma per day, that's at least 500 BC approximately. Unskilled laborers might be 2 obols, so a third of a drachma. And by 500 BC, the most popular currency was the 4 drachma coin. That was the owl. And so now, how do we compare it to the US dollar? We'll look at some of my silver coins. The owl coin would be popular. The dime, the quarter, nowadays is what is the most popular units because we're seeing less and less coins and currency all the time. But we want to go back to trust. How do we trust the money now and back then? The Athenians were trustworthy with their silver, very pure silver. And how did they get so much silver? They have mines, the Laurian mines, kind of like that gold in the rivers by Sardis. The Attica region, the Laurian mines, very close to Athens, had rich veins of silver. Warning, do not get captured by Athens because they will enslave you and put you in the silver mines. Not very pleasant. But this fuels Athens' rise to power. Over time, they've got a way to make money, and this is an accepted universal currency, the drachma. And it compares. It makes sense. It's coming from the silver mines. And Athens is democratizing everything. They've invented democracy by 500 BC. And they are the peace-loving, pious people who had, rich silver mine. They would lease out these different mines. So Nicias is a famous example of being one of these wealthy Athenians, successful. He had 1,000 slaves he owned and rented out these, the access to the mines. So the economic reality are people like Nicias and the flourishing economy and the vibrant power to the people, the democracy. This is the beginning of the classical age that you're about to see more of if you continue to lesson 21. But the silver is funding Athens as they develop a fleet of navy. They develop an army. They get ready for Persian archers, literally archers being shooting arrows at them in the coming years. These lessons are coming, but it is funding a society that is free, democracy. It is funding a society that is able to pay 2 obols to its jurors to participate in democracy. You got paid obols if you showed up to vote on laws in the ecclesia. It allowed poor citizens to actually get paid what their wage would have been as they participate in public life, as they participate in democracy, as a juror, as a voter. And they make the people sovereign because that's Athens. That's going to become Greece, and it very much feeds into us, the United States of America. Athens has democratized small coins to get them in the hands of the people, power to the people. They've invented democracy. We have democracy, a republic here in the United States, and we have small silver coins too. Could we compare the value? Could we learn and understand some new terms about value and money by looking at silver coins then and now? Let's do it. because money has value today for the same concepts as before. Trust has been a big word this whole time. Trust. But now I want to bring up face value, something that we have not had in this lesson until now. And I'm in the year 1901. This is a Morgan silver dollar, and the face value is $1. $1. Now, this happens to be one of the silver coins that we should check. The second vocabulary word is intrinsic value. This has intrinsic value because it's pretty much an ounce of silver. The value of the silver, the intrinsic, internal, inside intrinsic value of the silver. So I could melt this coin down and I would have silver, and it's a little less than an ounce. Extrinsic value, extrinsic. What is extrinsic value? It's what a collector is willing to pay for the coin. Or what extra trust do you have for this silver dollar? If the intrinsic value is actually less than what you can purchase for it. Extrinsic makes up that difference. So back when Lydian coins were invented, 600 BC, it was 4.7 grams. That intrinsic value of the grams of this Electrum, it's not very much. But the lion stamp on it brought in a lot of extra value, kind of like extrinsic, kind of like face value, but not really. It was trust value. That money was valuable because they could trust where it was coming from and create a unit that everybody understood. So that's very similar to money of today. The intrinsic value of the metal is not supposed to be the reason why that coin is accepted. It helps. It really, really helps, because if you dropped it, drop it back here. Listen. That should sound really heavy to you compared to this coin. Right? Which one do you think is worth more? I'll tell you about this coin in a second, where I got it in a communist country. But money is supposed to have trust and value. And so that Morgan silver dollar has the face value of $1. And in 1901, what could you buy for $1? I mean, straight up with inflation, it's been about 40, a factor of almost 40 from what the dollar would buy back in 1901 to the year 2025. For only a few pennies, you could buy an entire meal, a substantial meal. For a few pennies, you could buy a movie ticket. For a few pennies, you could buy a loaf of bread in 1901. For 20 cents, you could buy a pound of butter. That might be a good comparison. Or 10 cents, you could buy a pound of coffee. And from that, you can see there's not a direct relationship with all the different inflation. So inflation factors in. This could be a very messy economic lesson very quickly for all the other reasons why some of these prices would be out of whack. But the idea is, how hard do you work in the day to earn your drachma, to earn your dollars, and then does the money get you your food? Does it get you your home? And this Morgan silver dollar with nearly an ounce of silver, it's 90% pure. Nowadays, the extrinsic value, the collectible value would make this worth a lot more. And this one's shinier. This is Queen Elizabeth, the dollar from 1966, the Bahamas dollar. That only has 14 grams, but I really like this coin because this is about equivalent to the Tyrian shekel. So when they started making shekels as coins, the Tyrian shekel was the favorite standard, and it was the temple tax. It's the one that when Jesus was overturning the temple tables, it's because people were getting ripped off when they had to purchase these special, not this one, this is Bahamas, but it was the same size and shape. So it kind of makes that interesting. Intrinsic, extrinsic, face value. I really like this penny with King George V on it. So 1 penny. look at how big this 1 penny is. I mean, the intrinsic value of this copper coin, only a penny's worth of copper. That's really not very much, but a penny would be able to buy you food in London back in 1917. The point of the money is not the copper, although it does help because it's heavy, it's trusted, it has the king's face on it. Now, this one, you're not going to trust. I went to East Germany, East Berlin. I went behind the Berlin Wall in 1989. And what did they make me do? Can you hear this? What did they make me do? They made me buy, so this would be, they made me buy their East German money. This is 10 pfennigs. It is 100% aluminum. It's 1.5 grams of aluminum. And the intrinsic value of that metal is almost nothing. And if you heard it dropping in the bowl, you should think that coin is very light. And it feels really, really light. It feels not valuable. And I just spent one day in this communist country of East Berlin in 1989 before the wall came falling down. And it's a different story in communism. There's nothing to buy. This money was worthless because their communist economy, under socialism, you don't have groceries to choose from. Bread was about the only thing. Everything else was terrible. The food was not good. So it's a different story altogether. The value trust there with the East German communist government was nothing, was no good. You see some similar problems like in Venezuela with the socialism. There's no gasoline, and it's supposed to be free down there. So money that's aluminum and you feel like it's light and you don't trust it. That is one of the reasons why money is supposed to be hefty. It's supposed to feel like something. Now, these little dimes, they are small, but these are really, this is my favorite family collection, this Mercury. I did not put this collection together. So this comes together over, my great uncles, and these are Mercury head dimes. They are all solid silver. And these dimes are just interesting, and they're only a few grams of silver. We're talking 2.5. So you would need 10 of these to get an ounce of silver. So the intrinsic value of 10, that's not what it is. Extrinsically, these things, some of them are really quite expensive, like really hard to get. Like in 1916, so when it all started, notice that I'm missing the one from Denver. The 1916 dime from Denver would be worth $1,000 by itself. Not because of intrinsic, the silver, hardly any. I mean, a few grams, it's good. But the extrinsic, which is the rarity, the extra value that collectors would pay. So this is giving you some idea, the importance of having good money and having good weight. The intrinsic value is there for trust. It's there for a good reason. So I like these old dimes, especially because they would unite us with Athens. It's a good amount. 10 cents would feed you. It would be money that's useful in 1916, just like a small silver coin in Athens, like the Obol. The Drachma, that would be a bunch of these together, more like several dollars. And it just reminds me of the way things used to be and where money really gets its value. Now, if you want to look at the face value and then the lack of intrinsic value, and now we're just down to what's called fiat currency. It's more of a teaser. We won't do this now, but this $5 bill only has value because the government promises it does. It's the Latin word fiat, which is Latin for let it be done. let this $5 get you $5 worth of whatever. Could you eat? Could you get a meal for $5? It's a form of money that's very different. It's changed greatly over time, and it's a different economic lesson altogether. But I hope this pursuit of truth and the experience of the beauty of these economic exchanges people were having that were made easier with coins. You know, it would have taken a lot of courage for the Lydians to take their gold and start to stamp out something that maybe they didn't realize was going to be so impactful to the world, overcoming their struggles to pay their army people, to help the economics, then the Persians, and then the Greeks in their silver mines. This invention starts a chain reaction, cause and effect, and as you move forward into future lessons, you'll see who will rise to the top. They will need money, they will need coins, and we will always need a good understanding of value and economics and what makes money something that will get you a meal. What will you carry forward from this age? Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history, and that includes your history, some classical truth for your journey. Because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.